This is our weekly NBA check-in. And if the playoffs started today, here is how the Eastern Conference would shake out. The number one seed in the Eastern Conference would be the Milwaukee Bucks. They are 22-3. They've won 16 games in a row. And, man, Giannis is on a tear. The Greek Freak is playing phenomenal. He just won the MVP, and it seems like he's playing better. His jump shot's getting better. He had a quote when he lost in the playoffs. He said, "I'm going to come back and become an even better player." He found a way to accomplish that, and I just am so impressed. Every time I watch Giannis with his work ethic, and it really seems like, I said one of the storylines I was curious to watch going into the year for the NBA is, would Giannis be able to take his team farther in the playoffs? Right now, if he keeps playing the way he is, he's going to be able to lead his team on a longer run, maybe beat teams like the 76ers, who on paper have more stars, but aren't necessarily better. And the 76ers are the weirdest kind of mashup of players I've ever seen. You ever heard of like a greatest hits album? Actually, here's a better example. The Philadelphia 76ers have a bunch of stars. They have 5 stars on their roster: Joel Embiid, Josh Richardson, Tobias Harris, Al Horford. Why can't I remember the name of their point guard right now? It's fleeting my mind. You know who it is. It's the really tall guy who can't shoot, who has hit a couple jump shots so far this year, which is very interesting. Ben Simmons is his name. Look, it's not that I don't know his name. It's just in moments like this, when I'm on the spot, I forget them. The Philadelphia 76ers have 5 guys that are just an incredible... They're really good basketball players individually, but when you put them together, it just isn't quite meshing yet. And maybe it'll take time, and they're going to get better eventually. But the analogy I would make is that if you took the most played songs from 2018 last year, or 2019 so far this year, if you take the most played songs and put them on a CD together or an album together, they wouldn't work. You'd have like Lil Nas's Old Town Road, and then a country song, and then Adele, and then Post Malone, and just the flow of the album would be very weird. It'd be like this, the order of this, just because you took songs that on their own are all really, really great, when you put them together, it doesn't necessarily make them better. And right now, that's how the Philadelphia 76ers are playing. So again, the seeding in the Eastern Conference looks like this. The number 2 seed is the Miami Heat. They are 18-6. Now, the 3 seed is the Philadelphia 76ers. They're 19-7. But on paper, their roster should be at the top. They don't have a great bench, but they're the 5-star players they have. You would think, wow, they'd be winning, they'd be playing a lot better. And maybe, again, to be clear, maybe the 76ers are going to get better as the year goes on. They're just learning how to play together. But right now, currently, they're not really meeting the expectation they had for them. Given their roster, given the 5 stars they have, they should be the number 1 seed, and they're not. They're just not playing to the same level as the Milwaukee Bucks. It's very fascinating to me. Now, the number 4 seed in the Eastern Conference is the Boston Celtics. They're 17-7. The Toronto Raptors, without Kawhi, they're still doing well. They're 16-8. They're the number 5 seed. The Indiana Pacers are 16-9. They're the 6th seed. The number 7 seed is the Brooklyn Nets. They're 13-11. And the Orlando Magic are 11-13. They are the 8th seed. They would make it into the playoffs right now if the Eastern Conference playoffs started today. Now, the worst team in the NBA's Eastern Conference is the New York Knicks. And they just fired their head coach, David Fizdale. And it's very interesting to me. He always struck me as, first of all, a great guy. I thought he was a good head coach. And I don't think that he's the real issue here. I think Dave Fizdale is kind of the scapegoat, taking the fall. Someone's got to be blamed for their bad start. I think the real issue, number 1, is the owner, James Dolan, is clearly a gigantic problem in New York. I don't know how they're going to win with James Dolan as the owner. But number 2, why is the coach getting the blame when the people above him seem to be the problem? The team president, Stephen Mills, is not great. I think that Scott Perry, the Knicks general manager, they've been there for a long time, and they're the people who built the roster. They're the people who made decisions on the players that play in New York. I think building a terrible roster, then blaming the coach when he loses, it's just weird. It's not the coach's fault if you built a terrible roster and traded away good players. Porzingis is gone. It's like, you traded away Porzingis and got nothing for him. It's all weird to me. I think that the New York Knicks are clearly a gigantic mess. They're blaming the wrong people. Fizdale's not a bad coach, and I just, all of it is weird and bizarre, and the way the Knicks are being run is so terrible right now in New York. Now, one of the best stories, and one of the more fascinating stories in the last week, is about Trae Young, a young rookie, I guess a second-year player for the Atlanta Hawks. In a game against the Miami Heat earlier this week, The Hawks scored with 59 seconds left. That gave them a 6-point lead, 117-111 over the Miami Heat. And when that happened, when they scored that bucket, Trae Young went to the crowd and said, "It's over!" He was all proud and celebrating. And the irony of it is that the Miami Heat came back and won the game. They took the game to overtime, and then they won by 14 points in overtime, 135-121. The game was not over, and it's a lesson for Trae Young. Don't celebrate early. And, man, this is a team, the Atlanta Hawks, that need to learn how to win. It's just a bad look. Trae Young is a guy, he's growing, he's learning, and it's very clear the Atlanta Hawks, especially from this game, this prime example, they're a team that's still learning how to win. They had an opportunity against the Miami Heat, and they blew it. That's disappointing that they couldn't finish there because they had everything was working for them, and then they just got, the Heat went on a gigantic run. Jimmy Butler went on a tear, shooting incredibly well. I think it was like they went on like a 22-0 run at one point. Maybe from that point on is what it was. I can't remember. But the Hawks are learning how to win, and that moment with Trae Young boasting about their lead and then losing it very quickly is just a prime example of how young the Hawks are and how much they have left to learn and left to grow as an NBA franchise. We also need to give a shout out to the Indiana Pacers. They're 16-9. They're sixth in the Eastern Conference. And they've been playing and winning even without their star player, Victor Oladipo. He ruptured his right quad tendon in his right leg in January. And he hasn't played at all this year. He's been out since January. He hasn't played an NBA game in a long time. And it's still not clear when he's going to come back. That's the newer news that recently came out. First of all, it's really impressive that the Pacers are still making it work without their best player. But I got to say, I love Victor Oladipo. I became a fan of his in 2018 when the Pacers played LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers in the NBA playoffs. They took LeBron James to a 7-game series. They lost in Game 7. And after losing Game 7 with a very clear mind, very calmly, Victor Oladipo told a story about how someone had told him to, take a little break now and go enjoy his life. And he was very serious. He looked at the camera and was like, "This is my life." And it was very clear basketball is everything to Victor Oladipo. That was the day I said, I'm all in. I love Victor Oladipo. I'm on board with this guy. His attitude, his mentality is one that I really admire and love. And so I just was impressed by him. And it's very unfortunate that he's out, but it's really cool that the Pacers are able to stay afloat without him. And they're just going to get even better, I believe, when he does eventually return to their roster. So keep your eye on the Indiana Pacers. They're playing well without their star player. They'll get him back eventually and hopefully take another step forward and become an even better, more successful basketball team. Now let's look at the Western Conference. The NBA playoffs started today. The Western Conference would look like this. The number 1 seed in the West would be the LA Lakers. They are 22-3. They're playing phenomenal. They're just a great basketball team. Now, the second seed would be the LA Clippers. They're 19-7. The Dallas Mavericks are the third seed. They're 17-7. The Houston Rockets are 16-8. They're the fourth seed. The Denver Nuggets are the fifth seed. They're 15-8. Utah Jazz at 14-11 are the sixth seed. The seventh seed is the Sacramento Kings. They're 11-13. And the Phoenix Suns at 11-13 are also, or I guess they're also 11-13, but they are the 8th seed right now. I want to give a shout out to Luka Doncic. He just had a 41-point game and a triple-double against the Detroit Pistons. He's averaging 30 points per game. They played a game in Mexico. It was awesome. He had a really cool moment where he addressed the crowd in Spanish and was like really well articulate. Clearly, I don't know if he speaks Spanish, but it's pretty clear. Like I would think he does because he very eloquently said a lot, like way more than just a sentence or a couple words. He said like a whole phrase and addressed the crowd very calmly and easily in Spanish. It was really, really cool. Now, Luka Doncic is probably the best 20-year-old player we've ever had in the NBA. He's just lighting it up. He's on a tear. He regularly scores, 30, 40 points a night. And a big reason for this, why is he the best 20-year-old player we've ever seen? It's because he started playing professional basketball when he was 15 years old. He spent 4 years in the European League developing, becoming a player. And in Europe, it's far less about physical ability and it's more about developing your skill. And to hang around in that league and have success is so impressive to me. And that's just why it really developed his game. And it's why Luka is so much farther ahead of other guys that are his age at 20 years old. He's just been playing professional basketball for a lot longer at a higher level, being challenged by older guys, and being challenged to be a more technical basketball player. And that's what I just love watching Luka, man. He's a cool story. And again, he's probably the best 20-year-old basketball player we have ever seen. Now, we have one more thing I want to talk about. Kevin Love has requested to be traded from the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's from Portland, Oregon. He's from Lake Oswego, Oregon, which is like 15 minutes from downtown Portland. He's a 5-time NBA All-Star. He plays for the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's on the trading block. It's pretty clear he's probably going to get traded before the NBA All-Star break. He has said he wants to go to the Portland Trailblazers. He's from the Portland metro area, so am I. It would be really cool to get him. I'm not a Blazers fan, but I know for him to come home, I think would mean a lot to him. Can you imagine if you're an NBA player and you can go live in your hometown? You can go live in Lake Oswego, get a house in Lake-O, drive into Portland to play basketball games. I think just for the sake of Kevin Love, it'd be awesome. It's a great way for him to end his career, would be at home in Portland. And that's a story I love, as a guy coming home, a guy making a homecoming to his hometown to be with his family and play basketball and do the thing he loves. I think that'd be really cool. And so the storyline I'm rooting for right now is I want Kevin Love to go to Portland. I'm in Portland, to come to Portland and play for his hometown basketball team that he grew up a fan of. That's kind of a storyline I'm really rooting for, as we're not quite near the All-Star break yet, but as the ideas start circulating and trades, rumors, and all kinds of stuff keep coming around. The question is, what trades are going to happen before the All-Star break? That's one I really want to see. I want to see Kevin Love get traded to the Portland Trailblazers. That'd be awesome. And I really hope that happens, because Kevin Love coming home is a good story. Really, anytime a player comes home, but that's where he wants to be with his family, live in Lake Oswego. And I'm rooting for Kevin Love to get traded to Portland. I would really love to see that.